Hey guys, welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine, and this is your daily show. I'm your host Khalid Mohidin, and this is the show where we talk about all the major talking points in South African cricket. Now, I've got a very exciting episode for you guys today because we're going to be going into the conversations about obviously the Test squad that was announced for the Pakistan tour, and we have a special guest on the show to you to actually dive into it, analyze it a little bit further, and we're going to just talk about it much more in depth. But I'm going to give you guys the opportunity now to ask your questions. We're going to be having a special guest on the show, of course, like I announced. Daryn Dupavillon is going to be on the show, and you guys haven't seen him yet, and you've been asking for it. So it's going to be really exciting to talk about his career as well as what it feels like to obviously get your test call up. I mean, it's a massive talking point in any person's career. It's a massive achievement. So it's going to be awesome to be able to speak to him about that. A lot of you guys have also been asking about Othniel Baartman, and a lot of you guys have said that we must give you some information on it. So I did my research, yes, about him and about his career, but I think it's not going to do really justice to him if he's not going to be on the show himself. So I got someone that knows him a little better to speak to you as well. Gershwin Rabi is going to be on the show as well, and he's going to talk about that too. But before we get going, you guys know what you need to do. Click subscribe, click that notification bell for all future videos. Now, I have activated the super chat because I know that the super chat is going to get, or the live chat is going to be quite heavy. If you guys want to ask Darren any questions, you can ask with the super chat, and you can just put that in. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, of course. You can click the dollar sign, and you can activate a super chat. So let's get straight into it. As you know that the squad has been announced, it's a 21-man squad. Now, we know that there's two potential debutants in the side, and that's obviously Darren and as well as Othniel that possibly would get an opportunity. But I really wanted to speak to Darren because when the last squad announcement happened, you guys all spoke highly about Darren getting an opportunity. So I given you guys the opportunity now to speak to him, and he's going to be obviously explaining everything to you. So without further ado, let's introduce Darren to the guys. Welcome to the show, Darren. How are you doing?
Well, I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
No, I'm very well, thank you. Excited to actually speak to you. So first and foremost, where were you around about when you heard the news, when you got the call up, basically?
So I got the call a couple of days ago. The head selector gave me a call to let me know that they were going to take me with. I was just here at home with my girlfriend, just about to start some dinner. But yeah, it was really cool to get the call and really excited.
Yeah, I think every cricketer's dream is obviously to play Test cricket. So for you, it must be exactly the same thing. The opportunity now to be in the squad. What does this opportunity mean to you exactly?
Yeah, look, it's everyone's childhood dream, and if I looked back to like the start of my career, playing one-day cricket for the Proteas was probably, it seemed much further away than the longer format. I think I was sort of bred into domestic cricket through the longer format, so I always sort of envisioned that I would play the longer format way before I played the shorter format. But yeah, I'm incredibly grateful to get the opportunity. I think injuries have hampered me throughout my career, and yeah, just really, really happy that I'm getting the opportunity now.
Yeah, the next issue of our magazine that's coming out on Monday is actually all about Test cricketers, and I think this is a perfect time to ask you a question that we can put this video obviously in the magazine as well. What does it take to become a Test cricketer, or to get to that, to increase your level of performances, obviously in the longer format? It's obviously a different type of preparation phase for longer format cricket than it is for shorter format cricket. I think it takes a lot more concentration, but I think I'm going to let you tell me what it takes actually to perform at a high level in the 4-day arena first and foremost consistently.
Yeah, look, I think it all plays down to consistency. You know, you look at the guys that are incredibly successful around the world. You look at the likes of KG, Heinrich sort of coming onto the scene now in the last year or so. And what they do really well is they're incredibly consistent, and they're consistently putting in good performances. But aside from that, it's what they're sort of doing on the field, how consistent their bowling is and so on. And when we talk about the long format of the game, that's what we speak about, you know, being patient, being consistent, and asking as many questions as we can, certainly from the bowler's point of view.
Mm-hmm. So guys that don't know, I'm flashing up Darren's Dolphins record. This is only specifically Dolphins, not his first class record in total. I've split it up like that because it's a lot easier. His KwaZulu-Natal record is even better. It's 105 wickets in 31 matches at an average of 19. So incredible stats over here to talk about. But you spoke about consistency, and especially in the long format. Like we saw it in the last test, of course. Specifically when a lot of the guys were talking about the way Van Mulder bowled, bowling the ball on a consistent length, etc. You have pace to your game as well. You bowl quite quickly as well. How do you switch up between the pace and knowing when to bowl slow and adjusting your lengths according to conditions? How do you guys learn those type of things? Because I think that's not necessarily something you get taught when you leave school. I mean, you have to pick that up along the way. So how did you pick up being able to read different conditions, etc.?
Yeah, look, I've been fortunate in my career that I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of successful bowlers, certainly throughout my franchise career. And obviously the short stint that I had earlier on last year with the Proteas mix and being sort of involved with the mix during the winter, I've been able to have conversations with some of the experienced guys and so on. But it all sort of comes down to practicing and bowling at targets as much as possible. I think throughout my career, my consistency has probably been the issue and probably one of the points that I've had to work on the hardest. I've always been fortunate to be blessed with being able to bowl fast. But that's certainly something that I've had to work on. And I think leaning on the guys like Rob Fryling from the Dolphins, Kyle Abbott when he was still at the Dolphins, you sort of watch them apply their trade and how consistent they are for the periods that they have in so many years. You can only learn from them. And yeah, I think I was just fortunate that maybe when I was younger, I was a bit stubborn and didn't quite listen and take in the stuff that they had to say. But certainly as I've gotten older and as I've sort of had this taste now of franchise cricket, I've been a lot more willing to learn and a lot more open to change and stuff like that. And I think that's sort of done wonders at sort of this stage of my career.
Now, I know when I was growing up, a lot of coaches used to tell me put a 50-cent coin when we still had those 50-cent coins on the pitch and then try to hit that target every single time in a good area. Is there any sort of tips you can give the younger generation on how they can get that consistency in their game?
Yeah, look, we've done quite a bit of work with our amateur side, some of the Dolphins bowlers, and Rob Fryling sort of led those discussions and so on. And one thing that he's been trying to drill into me for years, and I think only now recently have I started actually listening to him and taking it in. But we just drive the fact of having straight lines, being as straight as possible, using your front arm. Because if you look at all the fast bowlers who are super consistent, they all have very straight lines. Their mechanics are really good. So I think it's just important that you make sure that none of your energy is going off to the left when you're bowling or to the right, because then your body's fighting to sort of generate the energy straight forward and create that straight line. And I think that's sort of the key to being as consistent as you can be.
That's awesome. Okay, so guys, there is one question, Darren, that I'm going to give to you. It's one of our patrons that has asked a question. His name is Werner Erasmus. He wants to know, how much confidence do you take from your international debut against Australia into the Test series? I know it's a different format, but going by your stats, you must be quite confident.
Yeah, look, I am incredibly confident. I think in the past years, it's sort of, with my inconsistency, I'll have a good game, gain a lot of confidence, have a bad game, and sort of lose it a bit. Whereas I think sort of this last year and so on, after having that experience and being around these guys, I think it's sort of given me a bit more confidence in that regard. So it was actually quite funny because the game after my debut, it was probably the most confident I've felt. And I actually went and had a horrific game against the Lions in Posh. So yeah, I think having that experience and sort of being within the mix throughout the off season during the winter sort of allowed me to sort of work on that and develop that aspect sort of from my game from a mental point of view. And yeah, it's just been really good to get a full season last season of game time. I think that's always been an issue with me, is managing to finish a season. And yeah, I've taken that confidence sort of into this new season now. Obviously, I've only played a couple of games. I missed the first few games with a little niggle. And obviously now with COVID, the guys have gone into a bubble for the one-day competition, which I haven't joined them because we leave fairly soon to Pakistan. So I've played very little cricket, but it's been nice to sort of draw off that confidence from the end of last season once I got my international cap.
Are you excited to get more time with a guy like Charles Langeveld? Because I think he's actually helped a lot of the guys to like just increase certain aspects of the game. Are you really excited about learning from him?
Yeah, very much so. You know, I like I said, you know, I've sort of had tastes during the winter and so on, but I haven't really had an opportunity to work with them in the nets for like a prolonged period, you know. Whereas my debut, I sort of flew in the night before, played, and left the next day. So I didn't really get that opportunity to work with many of the guys. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to having some time within the camp, being selected for the actual tour now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. Guys, I just want to let you guys know that there's obviously, we've opened up a Patreon account. The link is in the live chat. We have another Patreon that has asked a question over here that I'm going to pull up on the screen. Bad Panda wants to know, how was lockdown for you?
Yeah, lockdown was all right for me. So I was actually living in a flat with someone at the time, and my girlfriend's family have a like nice sized garden here and a gym at home. So there was sort of no question of where I was going to be spending lockdown. So I ended up spending lockdown with my girlfriend's family. And yeah, to be honest, it was probably a blessing in disguise to have a break from cricket after the full season we had last season. And obviously how my season finished last season with my debut, it allowed me to sort of build on that mentality and the ambitions to carry on playing international cricket. So I went into sort of like a winter, a lockdown period where I could really train here on my own in their private gym and really, really work on improving myself, my body, and hopefully being able to stay on the park for longer in this next season.
Yeah. Well, Darren, thanks a lot for coming on the show. I'm sure we're going to have another conversation, a longer conversation in the future. Good luck for the tour, and I hope you have an excellent tour.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
See you, man.
Cheers.
Thanks. So, guys, that was our interview with Darren. If you guys have just tuned in, you can go back and watch it after this game is done. There was another person in the squad, of course, that you know that we were talking about, and that is obviously Othniel Baartman. And I didn't want to go and pull out my own stats on him and have my own opinions on him because to be honest, I haven't really watched him play that much. So I have to bring on I'm going to call him my specialist today, Gershwin Rabi, to the show. Welcome to the show, Gershwin.
Good evening, Khalid. Thanks for having me, bud. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, so what other people might not know is that you were an excellent bowler in your time as well. Excellent stats. If you guys go search him on, obviously, click info, etc., you'll go see that. But from fast bowler to fast bowler, what sort of insight can you give us on Othniel? What type of, from the time that you worked with or played with him, etc., what was it that stood out to you about him?
Well, initially when I started playing with him, if I recall correctly, the other day when I spoke to him, or when he gave me the news that he might be going with the Proteas to Pakistan, we actually had a session where me and him had a good chat of the first time that we played together. He was actually 15 years old, playing his very first club cricket game. 15 years old, playing first team club cricket. Yeah, that was him. Look, for me, one thing that stands out about him is very hardworking, very disciplined. He's a proper and a true gentleman of the game. He's also very soft-spoken and doesn't speak a lot. He's got a bit of pace behind him, and most of the time he just lets the ball do the talking. I can hardly recall him ever chirping a batter or even saying something nasty to anybody on or off the cricket field. That's just the kind of person that I've gotten to know.
Yeah, when you talk about, you can talk about a lot of other guys, of course, that have certain specialities. You know, some guys maybe it's all this extreme pace. Some guys maybe are guys that can put it on the spot consistently and the ball does the talking. And maybe some guys like the shorter delivery, obviously, to trap batsmen in the crease. What sort of can we expect from Gershwin when it comes to that?
I think personally his main stock ball is the ball that he gets to go away from the right-handed batters, which would go into the left-handers. He does possess the one that comes back into the right-handers as well. And I know that he worked over the past couple of years extremely hard on bowling an effective bouncer, trying to pin batters against the head. Initially, when he started playing first-class cricket, what a lot of batters did, because he didn't yet have that skill to bowl a prop bouncer, all they did was lunge on the front foot, and they just used to camp there. So what he's gone and done is he worked on getting himself an effective bouncer to try and knock Oaks in the head, and then push them back, taking the feet away, and then nicking them off with the away swinger.
Mm-hmm. Now we have guys in the comment section. Obviously, we to go Google you now. So the guys that don't know, 331 wickets has an average of 22.51. You know? So guys, this know what the caliber of person that we're speaking with out here. If you could have, okay, if I can fast forward a bit and say that you had the opportunity, or if you had the opportunity to speak to Othniel before, if he gets his test debut, and you had an opportunity to speak to him, what sort of advice would you give to him?
You just broke up a little bit there, Khalid. I didn't catch the last part.
I just wanted to know if you had the opportunity to speak to Othniel before his debut, what sort of advice would you possibly give him?
Well, personally, I'd just tell him just to do what he does best. Do what you did to get you there in the first place. Don't try and change the thing, and just make sure that you empty your tank out there in the field. Make sure you leave everything out there and put in a wholehearted performance.
Mm-hmm. Now I have to ask you. Obviously, we know your history with coaching youngsters as well. I want to know what sort of advice you can give a youngster, a young fast bowler, especially with the way that conditions are different in South Africa. We know that, but also a lot of them won't have the opportunities to maybe play subcontinent conditions, etc. But what sort of advice would you give a young fast bowler in the beginning of their career?
Well, like I tell most of the fast bowlers that I get to work with nowadays, fitness is key. You need to be disciplined, and you need to know and understand your action. If you can get a coach behind you that can help you, especially when it comes to the technical side of bowling, it can get you to understand the dynamics and the biomechanics of your body and how to use that within your bowling action, then you're already winning. So make sure that you take on board the right advice. Not all the advice that people give you will always be the right ones, but make sure you take on the advice that works for you and that can get you to the next level. Not, I don't want to say as quickly as possible, but take on the advice that you can use in your game to grow yourself and get yourself to the next level. For some, it might be quicker than others, and other players might take a bit longer.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions for you as well in the comments. We just have one from a couple from a actually. He wants to know, what was your experience like playing for the Cape Cobras? What are your fondest memories?
My fondest memories playing for the Cobras was definitely my debut. I debuted for the Cobras in 2008 at Newlands against the Knights. I think they were still called the Eagles back then. Sharing a change room with someone like Herschel Gibbs. That's definitely one of my better memories that I have of the game as a player.
Incredible. He's actually one of my favorite players. So that must have been an incredible experience. One more from Abba before we say goodbye to you is another one is, what would you say about about how the Proteas did against Sri Lanka? Your favorite parts, especially about the bowling.
Well, I think for me, what was nice for me to see is that young bowlers was coming to the party. There were certain parts within the game where you could see they struggled a bit, and immediately after a short break, after a drinks or after a lunch or tea interval, you could see there was a definite chat, and they came back knowing exactly what to do. They had plans in place, and they knew exactly how to go about executing those plans. I could definitely see the end of Chico Langerveld in there. And I think this bowling attack with the lineup that we have at the moment, it can just go from strength to strength. Got youngsters like Othniel himself, Darren, Glenton Steeman is out injured at the moment. All these youngsters, they are bowlers that would fit into that mold, and you can definitely see that there's a plan that especially the bowling unit of South Africa is working to at the moment. And if the boys stick to their guns and they do what they have been doing and they do it for longer periods of time, they will definitely get to put a lot of sides under pressure, and hopefully they can add a couple of W's for the country.
Besides Chico or Langerveld's record, we know what type of player he was. We know what his execution of the death bowling and Yorkers was excellent. What is it about him that just gives bowlers that improvement? Because I've seen so many bowlers improve under his watch.
I personally, I played with Charles when I was at the Cobras. What I learned from him is the fact that the way he goes about his business. He's got a very, very good mannerism about him. And people think he's the type of guy that you want to listen to. You actually want to be close to him. You want to hear more from him. Almost like you want to be as close as possible to him so you can tap into the amount of knowledge that he has as much as you possibly can. He's just a fountain of knowledge when it comes to bowling, if I could put it that. If you take a look at where he started from, where he's played all over the world, and the amount of experience that he gained through that, and he's a guy that's always willing to share. He's always willing to give a little bit of advice. Always first at nets, last person to leave at nets. Whenever you want to do a bit of extra work, he's the guy that's there to help you and to show you what worked for him. Maybe try this, try that. He's that type of person, and I think all the bowlers that's worked with him at national level over the past couple of years since he's come back from Afghanistan, all the guys that I think they're feeding off that experience and they're feeding off that type of person and the mannerism that he has by wanting to educate, wanting to pass on the knowledge that he has. And yeah, he's just an overall great guy and someone that loves teaching, someone that loves sharing the amount of knowledge that he's gained over the years.
So thanks a lot, Gershman, for coming on the show. Good luck for the rest of the season for you as well, and I hope your family stays safe as well during this period.
Thank you so much, Khalid. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I'll see you soon. Check, bye. So, guys, that's all the interviews for the day. Excellent insight over there that you guys can get on fast bowling and obviously about Test cricket debuts, etc. Obviously with Darren as well later on in the show. The guys that have early on in the show, we spoke to Darren, so you guys can go back and watch that, of course. Let's get the guests on the show to talk about the particular main story, and that is obviously the Test team. So I'm going to bring up the Test squad for you guys at the moment so that you guys can see while I add the rest of the dudes in the back here. They can hear me. I can hear you. What's up, guys? How are you guys doing? Aditya and Shay, I can hear you both. So as you guys can see, majority of the team hasn't been changed really. There's only the addition of George Linder, Tabray Shamsi, Daryn Dupavillon, and Othniel Baartman that are new in the squad. If I look at it properly, yes, from guys that were initially called up, left the team as well, and then got recalled, etc. Like Björn Hendricks, for example. Dwayne Pretorius got called back up into the squad as well after he came back from his injury. All of those type of things that took place. It was quite a shock for some guys because I think a lot of people thought that a lot of the newer guys will be selected. But let's talk to the guys on the panel. Were you guys shocked by the selections when you saw the selection and you saw the team? Were you guys shocked? Let's start with Aditya and then we can go to Shay.
Not really. I think in his press conferences during the Sri Lanka series, Boucher made it pretty clear that he wanted to ensure that there's continuity and consistency in selection. So most of the players that we saw, with the exception of KG, I thought would be there. The addition for Pakistan, just given the conditions, or given what we think the conditions are going to be like, would be the addition of two more spinners. And I think if we're talking about playing 11 selections, my guess is that Keshav is obviously going to start, but depending on what they see on the day, they might have George Linde there as well. But otherwise, I don't think there are any surprises as such.
And for you, Shay?
Also, I think the selection of Baartman was a surprising one. That being said, I think it's really good to see that people who played well in domestic cricket, even this season as well, are being rewarded, with call-ups. So Dupavillon, as you know, Khalid, I'm a big fan of, having some time now since he was a more of a tearaway paceman, a young 20-year-old, raw young paceman, played for the Dolphins back in 2015. But he's really tried to because the worry for me, in the last few years with him, his length's sometimes a bit of an issue. He can bowl just half a yard short, unfortunately. And then he is a bowler, but he's not express. So you can ride the bounce off the back foot and play him quite well. And that's always been an issue for me. But he's really kind of improved his game. He's had some injuries as well. I think he's had back issues, actually, the last couple of years. He disappeared for a while. He came on the scene as a young 20-year-old tearaway. But he's come back in. And I'm really happy. Obviously played last year against Australia in that third year, I believe it was. And he's gone from strength to strength. Well, this year he took 11 wickets against the Knights in that return win. I think got beat by him in the first game in this year's 4-day competition. But yeah, I mean, apart from that, I mean, Dwayne Pretorius, I think he could be quite handy. You know, it's actually funny because I think another Dolphins player, I'm a bit biased, I'm a Dolphins fan, but I think Pepper Quayo on these wickets, especially Roland Pindi, could have been quite handy. Yeah, I know it sounds, you know, get all the Dolphins players in basically, you know, just call the Dolphins up. But you know what I mean. So you gotta rep DBN. You know what I mean. So, but yeah, you know, I'm just I think Pep McQuarrie on these wickets. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan from home at Test level, but I feel like, especially Roland Pindi, they're quite sticky wickets at times. You know, depends how they play, but I feel like he could have been quite handy because I feel like there's more room for growth with Pep McQuarrie as opposed to Dwayne Pretorius. Dwayne Pretorius is only 32 years old now. You know, I don't know how long he's got left, as I mentioned before on this channel. But I think, to be honest with you, the squad's pretty much picked itself. I mean, the fact is, you come off 2 resounding victories against Sri Lanka. You're not even expecting too crazy, are you? Why would you change your winning squad? And I think, obviously, as well, Dupavillon and Baartman are enforced, aren't they, because they're injury. Otherwise, Pretorius and I'm forgetting now the other pace bowler. It's going to help me out, guys. And so yeah, England Steeman would have gone. They would have gone. That's the reality of it. So that's just. I mean, these guys are next in line. So I think it's. I do think I always like the fact that when you reward performances in domestic cricket, you know, with these call ups, it's important. I think for the domestic game. So yeah.
So I get some of the points here in the comment section. Like some of the things that bothers me is that there's not enough variation within the spin attack. For example, we have 3 left-arm spinners. Maybe we have an off spinner. There haven't really been a lot of them in our that I can speak about necessarily in the domestic scene. Really, that have really been amazing bowlers. I mean, obviously we'll have a couple of them. That really stand out. Obviously, some people were talking about having Sean van Berg obviously getting the call up, maybe. And I don't know why we actually don't produce a lot of them. It's quite interesting that we haven't. Although we do have an off-break bowler in Sabrayan that has been performing quite well consistently. I'm surprised that he hasn't actually gotten the call up as maybe as one of those off-break bowlers that can come into the side right arm guys. So it's quite tricky to. It's quite puzzling that they haven't actually given him an opportunity. Given that they're giving guys like Othniel Baartman a chance, Clinton Stearman a chance, I think that Sabrayan should be in the talks too if they're going to talk about spinners. But when you look at the spinners that they have called up, George Linder adds a batting factor, and obviously you have the Shamsi, who's excellent. He's had an amazing season in the 4-day competition. That obviously comes into that. You have to take that into consideration. Aditya, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the comment over here that are talking about if you're going to play 2 spinners, who do you drop from a seaming perspective?
$1 million question. But see, I think unfortunately Lutho has to make way for KG again. And Andrik sort of picks himself because he bowls express pace. I think if a second spinner is to be selected, then I think the Lungi would have to make way for him. Unfortunately.
Sure. That's a massive call. Some guys even say maybe Vian Mulder will have to give way at the number 7, but we need a deeper batting lineup. I think South Africa needs to get that into the system, give their all-rounder an opportunity at number 7 for a longer period of time. Shay, I think you might disagree on this one.
Yeah, because as you mentioned before, I'm a big fan of Mulder. My worry is if George Linder, who people I think are probably expecting to play for Mulder if he comes in at 7, I'm not convinced that Linder's good enough to bat 7 at Test level. That's the worry. Now, you can play Linder, you play Mirage at 8, and you've also got Inoki, Rabada, and Ngidi. But I feel like you mentioned before, Khalid, that the tail is lengthened. In my opinion, if I'm free, if I'm Nasim Shah, If I'm Pakistan, basically, if I'm looking at lineup, I'm thinking, 4 down. It's like the England of old, and when I was growing up, 4 out, all out, as we used to call it, So it's you could look at it and think it's a little bit weak in that middle order. That's the worry here. So DT mentioned you might drop. DT mentioned you dropping Gidi potentially, because of course, KG comes in for Sapamla. It's a brave call, that, but it's not necessarily the wrong one. I could see that happening as well, to be honest. You've got to play the right team for horse for courses. Ultimately, I appreciate Gidi's one of the best bowlers in the team, but you got to play a team to win the matches wherever you go. And there, because of, obviously, I mentioned before, Mulder's done really well. And again, I think he's the kind of guy who can build up pressure from one end and allow the spinner to attack from the other end. I know there's been obviously an issue about people mention the fact that so many left-arm spinners, but Sean von Berg spins the ball the same way. It's no difference. So, I mean, sure, I appreciate, obviously, done really well this season for the Knights, but he's 35 years old now almost, isn't he? So the ship might just sail, unfortunately, Sean von Berg. I think, if it's for me, I'd actually probably agree with Ditya. I think I'm actually just dropping Gidi. Potentially, I can't remember saying that, to be honest, because I'm a huge fan of Gidi, but I actually might tend to drop him and keep Mulder in the side. If you're going to bring in George Linder, I'd bring in Linder for Shamsi personally, instead of Shamsi. I'd be bringing Linder.
Cool. We have someone saying, drop a Rassi and play the extra spinner. I think that is quite outlandish to think about. Yeah, you are just breaking up a little bit. Maybe you can just rejoin again, Shay. I am going to be wrapping up soon, though. So just to rejoin if you want to come in, if you're coming in time. But Aditya, let's talk about this a little bit. They have a massive squad. So initially I said maybe picking a 30-man squad, right? And taking the whole squad one time, including T20 players, because, okay, before you guys slate me in the comment section, my thought process here is having a massive squad, because a lot of the guys that are in the test side, right, are in the T20 squad already. Most likely are going to start in the T20 side. So they kind of fill a position for both. So it allows you to pick a much bigger squad in general. Maybe some newer guys as well you can put in to get some experience. I think that's the most important factor. We got Shay back again. Welcome to the show, Shay. We're talking now about the mass of the squad, the size of the squad. I said initially, some people say 21-man squad for the test arena, for a test squad, even though it is over there, is quite large. My thought process at first was to pick a squad that's for both T20s and for test cricket. But I didn't do that in this particular series. England, for example, picked 2 squads, and they took both a test squad and a T20 squad. We're going to possibly do the same. And the guys are probably going to fly up. My understanding of everything is they're probably going to fly up a little later, and then they're going to isolate probably in the same hotel, maybe on a different floor or something. I don't know how they're going to do all the things, but if I had to guess, this is what probably will happen. They'll probably isolate for the couple of last days of the last test or something like that, and then probably just sit there for a while, self-isolate, and then join the rest of the squad after they've been tested, and then all of them will move to Lahore just to reduce all the distractions. Another way they could have done it is actually, or they could do it, is probably let the guys travel to Lahore directly, set up the bio bubble over there for the T20 squad, and then let the other guys get tested and come into the bubble. Let's wait and see. Maybe they want the extra. It's going to be easier for them to actually have training sessions over there at the ground and etc. for the T20 guys and the spare guys. Are you happy with the 21-man squad for the test series? Aditya, let's start with you. Do you think they should have just picked a full-on 30-man squad that covers both formats?
I think the idea in picking a 21-man squad is to ensure that players aren't spending time in bio bubbles without really having much to do there. the 21 players here, they know that their purpose is they selected for the test squad, which they know. And while there are a couple of players who will be there in the T20 team, I think they want to make sure that there aren't players who are there just for the T20s and are not really doing a whole lot during the test series, because the focus is going to be on the test players. So I think perhaps it's one of those things that they're doing to ensure that players mentally, they're not exhausted by the time the T20s start. But yeah, overall, again, it's a decision that we know more about later, and we'll see how they go, because Quinton de Kock said in his last press conference that it has been sort of unsettling for the players to spend as much time as they have in biwobbles, and I think that might just be the rationale behind why they picked a 21-man squad instead of 30.
Mm-hmm. Shay, do you have anything to say on that? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was waiting for the cue. That was all. I know I talk too much. I like to just wait first. Me personally, I would have announced the T20 squad, and I would have been, and then obviously, I just said before, I'd probably fly together anyway, be on the floor, and then if you need to kind of bring upon plays, I mean, because I think obviously it's still fresh in mind. We'll have to Sri Lanka, that first test, you got 4 injuries, and then all of a sudden, your squad's looking depleted. Now, 21 guys, it's only about 4-5 more people you normally get in an away tour. I think 21's a healthy number, but I think announcing a T20 squad wouldn't have been the end of the world. I mean, my worries, I guess, not so many people who have been being a T20 squad that can necessarily translate over to the test team. So, for example, a Peter Milan, for example, or a Zubair Hamza, would you really call them T20 players? But you'd almost be announcing them as like reserves. That's probably a safe way to do it. A reserve list. Or Yanman Milan would be in a T20 squad, but you wouldn't really call him a test player right now, would you? So I think that's difficulty they had. I think they could have done what England have done recently. They've done, like, for example, for the Sri Lanka series they're currently on now, is announce a host of reserves and then take them as well. But I appreciate the moment, especially. It's very taxing, as we've seen throughout the entire world internationally. There's been so much talk about this. The bubble is very difficult. We've seen India right now. They're potentially going to boycott the 4th test against Australia because they refuse to go into a hard lockdown again for 5, even a 5-day quarantine. They don't want to do it. So these exertions on players is tough, and I think it's very important that we look after the mental well-being of these players. So I think the 21 people is a good balance, but I think maybe the best thing to do is announce some reserves to go along with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's perfect. And the coach Lubabalo has spoken. The size of the squad is fine. So guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks a lot for contributing to this particular show. You guys that have tuned in right now, we had an interview with Daryn Dupavillon, and we also spoke to Gershwin Rabi about Othniel Baartman. So you can go check that out later on. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, click the notification bell for all future videos. Of course, I posted in the live chat, I posted our Patreon link. Please become a Patreon. We really would like you to come on this journey with us. There's different tiers for you to pick accordingly. Don't forget to download the latest issue of the magazine and subscribe to the magazine. Links on the screen and in the description. cricketfanaticsmag.com. We have a Pakistan series tab already waiting for you. There's not a lot of content in there yet, but we will be obviously updating that over time now, leading up to the Pakistan series. If you guys have a business and you're looking to make sales online, even if your business is offline, there's a free tutorial on this channel. Click the link in the description as well if you want more information. Thanks a lot, Aditya. Thanks a lot, Shay. Thanks a lot to all of our guests tonight. And thanks a lot again to the fans. Without you guys, we don't have a show. So without further ado, thanks, guys. And we'll see you guys again on Sunday evening with a Sunday podcast. Cheers, everyone.
Cool. Cheers, guys.